The Republican establishment raced to line up behind four-time criminal indictee and insurrectionist Donald Trump after Nikki Haley dropped out of the GOP primary, but that hasn't made Trump's biggest supporters like Marjorie Taylor Greene any less unhinged. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Well, here we are, you guys. Donald Trump is now the presumptive GOP nominee for president, again, for a third time, despite the fact that he's a twice-impeached, four-time criminal indictee and racist who's been found liable for fraud and sexual abuse, banned from doing business in the state of New York for 3 years, owes over $500 million in fine, took millions from foreign governments while he was president, tried to extort a foreign country to interfere in an election in 2020, and encouraged another to help him win in 2016, actively undermined the nation's response to a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and let a deadly disease spiral out of control. It's about to go on trial for breaking campaign finance laws by paying hush money to cover up an affair during the 2016 campaign. Orchestrated a months-long coup attempt that culminated in a violent insurrection to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power and install him as an unelected dictator. Stole classified documents and obstructed attempts to get them back, has never once won the popular vote and has been routinely rejected by a majority of Americans in election after election. Spews deranged conspiracy theories about everything from climate change to immigration to vaccines to windmills, glitches on three-syllable words, two-syllable words, and one-syllable words, cheats at golf. Can't spell his own name, his wife's name, or the words indicted, education, unprecedented, stolen, Denmark, Kentucky, or tap. And is, on top of everything else, the single weirdest and most off-putting human being on the face of the planet. And this is the same planet Ted Cruz lives on, so that's saying something. I'm sorry, but this guy's not a real person. He's a glitching NPC from a video game. He makes less sense than a sim. If you put four walls around him without a door, he'd just forget to eat and pass out. Soon we're gonna see him at a rally just running headfirst into a wall. $1 million? That cost us $1 million. A lot of talk about how that graphic was gonna look today, guys, and I think the verdict's in. The Republican Party is coalescing around this deeply unpopular weirdo after his only remaining GOP rival, Nikki Haley, dropped out today. Now, just days ago, Haley made news by insisting she wasn't bound by a previous pledge to support Trump in November.
You did sign a pledge, an RNC pledge, to support the eventual nominee. Do you still feel bound by that pledge?
I have always said that I have serious concerns about Donald Trump. I have even more concerns about Joe Biden.
So is that a no? You're no
Trump's
longer bound
daughter-in-law.
by that pledge?
No, I think I'll make what decision I want to make, but that's not something I'm thinking about.
The election you were just in is not something you were thinking about right now? See, this is why you lost. Your lies are boring. At least Trump's lies have some art to them. Not many people know this, but at night I grow wings and I fly over the city, vanquishing evildoers and also peeping in ladies' windows. It's true. Why would anyone in the Republican Party give a damn about a GOP pledge when the guy who runs the GOP has never been bound by any pledge ever in his life? He hasn't been bound by a pledge to remain faithful in his marriage, a pledge to honor the Constitution, a pledge to pay his contractors, a pledge to pay his taxes, or a pledge not to tell people to cure COVID by drinking pledge. So Haley went out of her way to say she wouldn't feel bound to endorse Trump. And while she didn't quite endorse him in her speech this morning, she was very conciliatory towards him.
In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that.
Yeah. That definitely sounds like my dude, Donald Trump. A compassionate uniter who will reach out to people with different points of view. And in fact, as Haley was delivering that speech, Trump was reciprocating her well wishes with a characteristically kind, humble, and complimentary post about Haley on his social media site, which I think is called Hole. Here's what he said.
Nikki Haley got trounced last night in record-setting fashion, despite the fact that Democrats, for reasons unknown, are allowed to vote in Vermont and various other Republican primaries. Much of her money came from radical left Democrats, as did many of her voters, almost 50% according to the polls.
I wish Donald Trump well, and I wish Nikki Haley would fall down a well. When are these people going to learn? No matter what you say about Trump, he will never repay your kindness or loyalty. If you held the elevator door open for Trump, he'd press every button, loudly fart, and then say, "Enjoy the ride, loser." And while Haley hasn't endorsed Trump yet, most Republican leaders are falling over themselves to get behind him. Like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who once called Trump disgraceful and blamed him for what McConnell called a violent insurrection.
The Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is endorsing former President Trump.
In the aftermath of Nikki Haley stepping aside from the Swift race, the Republican leader issuing a statement saying that he will, in fact, endorse Donald Trump for the presidency.
Well, at least we think McConnell endorsed Trump. Halfway through his comments, he froze and switched over to an old Windows screensaver.
First, let me just say that
the media is calling this a remarkable turnaround, but it's truly the least shocking ending imaginable. It's like if at the end of Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis was alive and the kid just wanted attention. Now, do I believe the McConnells of the world wanted Haley or DeSantis or anyone else to beat Trump for the nomination? Sure. But when they didn't, it was crazy to think Mitch or anyone else was going to take a principled stand. And because they won't, Trump and his goons have no incentive to moderate themselves. The opposite is happening. They're becoming more emboldened. They're explicitly promising to jail their opponents, get revenge on their critics, and use executive powers to stamp out protests and carry out mass deportations. At Trump's victory party on Tuesday, one of his biggest boosters and fellow lopsided Picasso painting, Marjorie Taylor Greene, flipped out at a British reporter who dared to ask her about a conspiracy theory she once promoted that wildfires are caused by space lasers controlled by a wealthy Jewish family.
What do you think the message should be to Nikki Haley tonight?
Well, we've been encouraging her to drop out and support President Trump, and I think tonight is the clear message that President Trump is the clear front runner. He's the winner in our Republican primary, and it's time for Nikki Haley to drop out and support him.
Can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much.
It's a testament to British manners that even after being told to F off by a raving lunatic, they still say, "Thank you very much." I'd love to see that reporter on the subway. "The CIA is using mind control rats to spy on us." That's a fascinating insight. And may I say, I love your aluminium hat. Whenever British reporters have to deal with wackos here in the U.S., they always maintain the poise of a narrator in a BBC nature documentary. We're here in one of the most dangerous parts of the jungle, a Trump rally, where we're hoping to get a glimpse of the rare American nutbird in its natural habitat. So Trump is feeling confident after his big Super Tuesday wins and support from the GOP establishment. He did another of his classic phone rants with Fox News yesterday, where he hypnotizes the hosts into terrified silence, like tourists watching a drunk Santa take a dump on the sidewalk. Must be so weird if you happen to have Fox News muted when that happens. Are these hosts watching me? Am I the TV? And in the course of that interview, Trump predicted that he would win not just the presidency, but his former home state of New York.
You look at what's happened to New York and Chicago, you look at what's happened to Los Angeles. We have a much different country in many ways, but also from a voting standpoint. They can't go to hospitals, they can't go to schools, they can't use their playgrounds for their kids. We're going to make a heavy play for New York. We're going to make a heavy play for Virginia, states that generally don't go Republican. I think they're going to go Republican.
All right, first of all, you think you can win New York in a presidential election? You couldn't even win a mayoral election. And remember, this guy did, so New Yorkers hate all politicians, but especially Trump. On the New York ballot in November, Biden will be listed as friggin' Joe Biden, and Trump will just be listed as this guy. Why are Republicans allowed to all over liberal cities while Democrats never on red states. New York City's homicide rate is 4.8 per 100,000 people. Alabama's homicide rate is 15.9 per 100,000. More than 3 times that in New York City, but you never hear Joe Biden all over Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa, you been there? It's a hellhole, folks. I'm not kidding around here. There's a crimson tide, all right, from all the murders. No joke. No joke. After disavowing him and blaming him for the insurrection at the Capitol, Republicans have once again slinked back to Donald Trump, and now they're going to spend the next 8 months making promises and asking us for our votes. And to that I say,
Why don't you off?
This has been A Closer Look. Hey everybody, thanks for watching A Closer Look. And as a reminder, my brother Josh and I have started an established podcast called Family Trips with the Myers Brothers. We hope you listen. We hope you like it. And see you soon.